So in this video, we're going to talk about Alex Hormozi. We're going to talk about some of his content and how that could potentially apply to building a video business. Now, Alex Hormozi has hundreds of thousands of followers following him. He's arguably one of the icons for 2025. And the biggest question is, can we take some of his advice to build a video business? And I'm going to break that down in today's video. Before we jump into the content, for those of you that don't know me, I've been running my video agency for 15 years and I've done hundreds of thousands of dollars through a system which I call now the Clout method. So if you are interested in learning more about what we do on a more one-to-one basis, click the link below. If not, subscribe, like the video, show some love. It really helps the channel grow. Let's dive in. We're going to look at Hormozi and we're going to look at why Hormozi is arguably one of the biggest business influencers in, I would say, 2024, 23, 20, and going into 2025. And this because with good reason, he gives solid advice. And so I want to review some of the stuff and how you can apply some of his advice to your video production company. So first, let's start with the niching aspect. Now, before we get into it, we always say at Clout, when we're working with our higher level students in Clout, the 500K brand story creator, we always talk about the 3S's. The 3S's is a model that is about going after a specific person that has a specific problem with a specific creative solution, right? The reason why this is so effective, because clout in essence, a lot of people misinterpret what clout really means. Clout is not about fame. Clout is not about volume. Clout is about being laser focused with a small group of people that want what you have. And it's a little bit like the theory of being like, if you had a heart problem, you wouldn't see a general doctor, you would go to a heart specialist, and you would pay a lot more for a heart specialist versus a general doctor. Play the video.
I'll talk to a registered dietitian who helps registered dietitians bill insurance more accurately. Talk about a niche of a niche of a niche. And she has 5,800 followers. And she told me she made her first sale when she had 8 people on her email list. Is it a list at that point? Or do you just like email 8 people? You know what I mean? But she was doing just under $1 million a year. I looked at her reach on her account and it was like 2,800. But if you're a registered dietitian and you want to make an extra 100 grand a year by billing insurance under all these different codes, you buy her thing.
See what he's doing here, basically what he's saying here is that you've got someone that doesn't have a large following, yet they're doing $1 million a year. And again, and the reason that's happening is because they're ultra specialized. And when you adapt the 3S's, you really can stand out. So as a video agency, my highest recommendation to you is to go after a certain industry. 1, you're going to make far more money. Number 2, you're going to have way more impact. Number 3, your marketing and advertising is going to be so much more easier. Number 4, you're going to be an actual specialist, because typically when you go into a niche, the problems are all the same. And so you become the actual heart specialist of that thing. And it just gets the attention of the top 20%. That's the other big thing. It attracts the high quality spenders, because most industries have a top 30%. And what are they all doing in that? They're trying to take market share. And so what is the fastest way to take market share? Well, it's branding, it's video, it's content. And this is where you can come in with that specific creative solution. So let's go to the next video. This one's interesting for me. It's a longer video, but we're going to play it because there's a massive lesson in this. And the lesson is, he talks about there's 2 types of people. There's people that make stuff, and then there's agencies, right? And agencies is where he talks about he wanted to get involved in something. He wanted to just pay someone between 3,000 and 5,000, and then he would go to a bigger agency. And when he says bigger agency, what I think he's really meaning is more specialized, where he would pay 15 to 30,000 or something along like that. The video will talk about it in a second. But the cool thing is that you can see a guy like this, like influencers and businesses that just want someone to come in and take this off them. And this is where it becomes really special, where you can take what he's saying in this video and essentially start to think about how can you build out maybe a YouTube infrastructure for brands, which is a very good offer, by the way. And if you're in the 500K brand story, I talk a lot about the fact that YouTube compounds. It's not a disappearing, it's not disposable media like TikTok, X, and Instagram and LinkedIn. It actually lives on because it's powered by a search engine. And you can see how he's sort of going into these agencies and utilizing them as the people that are doing it for them. And a lot of brands need this, but you also see in the front end of this video where he talks about there's people that make stuff and then there's agency. And so the big part of like our the psychology or the angle that we talk a lot about in the 500K brand story creator, if you're a videographer, you have to think like an agency. You have to become an agency per se with your pitch. How do you do that? You do that by being a specialist. So let's look at the video and see what he has to say.
Used to grow my audience by 5 million people in under 24 months. And the crazy thing is 24 months ago, I had less than 10,000 followers and I knew nothing about YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, any of these other platforms. And The reason that I was able to catapult to, a top 1% creator in that.
And I mean, this is an influencer, right? This is an entrepreneur. Imagine like that is actually okay with being in front of the camera. And that again is a clue to going after the certain niche. You want to sort of go with people that actually want to put video out. But also you've got to think about like other brands, like other niches, like builders that would have no idea around YouTube and infrastructures and content and storytelling and the power of it and what it does for them, where you can come along and you can actually show them that you have a creative solution to this problem, which will generate them more leads.
That 24-month period is using this method that for some reason no one really talks about. Whenever I enter a new space, whether it's trying to learn a new skill, a new platform, a new anything, I realize there's a massive amount of skill deficiency that I have to overcome as fast as humanly possible. And so I can either deploy time or I can deploy money to save myself time.
And this part here where he's talking about time and money, the sink and swim clients will be gladly give this to you, but the ones that are at the higher end that are about that not in sink and swim and what I would call going into market domination or trying to take market share, they got a bag of money and they would prefer to pay someone to amplify that. They wouldn't have the time to be able to do this themselves. And this is key because he's saying it now.
Money to save myself time. So within the world of organic content, I was like, who can I pay to shortcut my path to getting to where
you got to pay attention to this bit because you don't want to be seen as this other guy.
They are. So on one hand, I could go to like celebrities, and I did go to some of them, and they would give me their strategies, but it was like very personalized and tailored to them, and I didn't think it would apply to like how I run acquisition.com in my daily life. On the other hand, there was like the coaches, gurus, etc. that I could go to, and I didn't want to do that because they might be using something that worked like 5 years ago, which honestly, I see all the time. They're like, guys, you've got to do hashtags on YouTube videos. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like that's not true. And the third option, which I ultimately went with, are advertising agencies. And what an agency is just a business that sells services of advertising on your behalf. I can pay someone to run ads for me. I can pay someone to cut, edit, and distribute content on my behalf. So what I want to do is help you decide whether or not you should use an agency and avoid what I call the agency trap. There's different tiers of agencies. There's the guys who just make
this right here. You do not want to be this person. This is where you do not want to be positioning yourself in the market as the person that just makes stuff. This is what I'm talking about. Creative technicians and human tripods. This is not how you want to be positioned.
People who are real pros. Contextually here, for one brand.
What does he mean by real pros? I just put that down to being a specialist, to being a heart specialist with a specific problem, specific creative solution to a specific person.
And on one platform, a small one might cost $3,000-ish, maybe $5,000 a month. The more advanced ones are usually in the $15,000 to $30,000 a month. So,
and this is key. This is someone now telling you like how much he spends. Like the retainers here, you can sell at anywhere between 3 and 5. And then if you're hyper specialized and you really know your stuff, I mean, what is big? A big to me is not anything. This is where I don't like. I think what he should be saying is going to hyper specialize is what he would mean. I don't think he means big agency. And what does big agency mean? Do they just charge you more? He's going to sort of an average experienced generalist agency that's doing 3 to 5, and then he's moving into what I would call a specialist. He can pay 15 to 30 to get it done.
Significantly more money. So here's how I use agencies now and how you can too. Phase one is I get what I would consider a basic agency. So long from getting into YouTube, the first step I did was I hired a $3,000 to $5,000 a month agency, and they just got me to commit to doing 3 videos a week. So they just trimmed it, which means you take out the oohs and ahs, put an intro and a thumbnail. The main objective of that first phase was just to get the basics down, forcing me to create content on a regular cadence. Once I have more context, because I've spent 3-6 months working with them, seeing what the audience likes, then I'm like, okay, now I want to learn everything. So I go from beginner of learning the basics and doing the fundamentals to how do the top creators create on this platform. No business owner should change their business for one client. And so it makes sense for both me and the small agency, or for you and a small agency, to part ways at some point when your demands for what you want exceed their capacity. So then I work with the much better, more advanced agency who works with the top creators to learn all of the more nuanced pieces of the platform. So rather than agree to their initial terms, which is basically pay us as long as humanly possible and we hope you pay until you die, this is exactly what I say. Gather round. I want to do what you do in my business, but I don't know how. I'd like to work with you for 6 months so I can learn how you do it. Plus, I'll pay extra for you to break down why you make the decisions you do and the steps you take to make them. Then, after I get a good idea of how it all works, I'll start training my team on it. And once they can do it well enough, I'd like to change to a lower cost consulting agreement. This way, you can still help us if we run into problems. Are you opposed to this? When you start that way, I like it because you're starting with very clear intentions. And you're saying, hey, I'm gonna commit to 6 months. This is
And what is cool about this is you can actually offer that to your clients. You can actually say, what we're going to do in the first 6 months is we're going to do absolutely everything for you. Or in the first 18 months, typically like 18 months, because it takes about 18 months for really a YouTube to kick off. I personally believe it takes about 18 months. And it eventually will start to compound based on my studies. And I've only just started my YouTube channel now, where I've got agency behind us helping us get us to where we're going. But the offer could be very similar. It could be like, look, let us do it for you for 18 months. And then after that 18 months, in the second interim, what we'll do is we'll train you and we'll help you place someone inside your organization. So you're not paying the 30,000 a month. And then what we'll do is we'll put you into a consultancy where we will just keep making sure you're on track and keep guiding your team around the creatives, trending, keeping our ears to guns because we're specialists, right? This is an offer that is like insane. And so he's basically telling you what he wants from videographers, what he wants from video agencies. He wants someone to come in. And then like, if you're really, really skilled, and let's say that you're a videographer watching this and you're just hyper specialized in like cinematography and you just want to do that at all, but it wouldn't take much for you to assemble a team. And when you've got around $15,000 to $30,000 a month coming in, you pretty much can hire whoever you want to hire, right? And you can essentially put a very cool team together that specializes in thumbnails, that specializes in, copywriting, that specializes in understanding the infrastructure of YouTube and where you go out and you create killer content, right? For this client. And that's the thing with videography is I just don't think that part will ever really truly get replaced in terms of the storytelling branding aspect, especially if you're doing brand story, because brand story requires B-roll and it's really documentation and things of that. And you can sell these as like 3-part documentaries per month, like where you do a documentary or you drop a short form documentary or a brand story every week for a client. That's going to require high level cameras, planning, etc., etc. And it depends what you do, but you can set the client up with their own, where you place editors and you place videographers for them. And then you put them on a director's sort of consultancy fee where you're directing the content. And that allows you to scale up really quickly. And it also allows you to keep the client long term.
This is what I want from you. And I'm also saying I'm going to continue to pay you after the engagement's over for a much higher leverage, much more profitable consulting engagement. So that's what a lot of agencies would ultimately want. And if I need to pay a little bit more than the agency fee upfront, then I'm willing to do that. I also understand that as I start to train my team on it internally, there will be a period of time where I'm paying both them and my team. So you're paying twice. The thing is that when you do that, you're actually building the enterprise value of your business and you're building the asset that you own rather than being reliant on somebody else who eventually could, if you wanted to, cut you off and then you'd be dead in the water. Or what more realistically happens is they gouge you and they continue to raise their price because they can see how much money you're making from the thing. With that new agency, we ran the same play. Hey, we want to learn from you. We want to understand why you're picking these things. We want to understand the decision-making process, etc. I start documenting what they're doing into our processes internally. We want to start co-creating. So they're making stuff for us and we're making stuff for us. And eventually our stuff for us starts to be as good and eventually better than the stuff that they make for us. And it should be, because I'm only one client of many to them, and I'm basically renting them as fractional labor with expertise at a premium. Once your team has the same amount of expertise or more, they should be better because one, they have more time because they're going to fully allocate their time to you. And secondly, because they will always have more context on your brand than an agent will.
And you can literally sell it like that. You can literally say that moving you into the consultancy creative direction, giving you creative direction allows you to have more of a dedicated team that's fully on you. Eventually, once you understand why we make decisions, why we do what we do, after that first initial 18 months, we can then give you the creative direction. And this is where you can really scale up international too. You can get really, really good at setting these infrastructures out where you can actually get a sort of an offer together where you can actually place people in these companies in your chosen niche. And that can be a very valuable offer.
By having more time and more context, all we have to fill is the gap of expertise. And so once we have the expertise gap, then the in-house team should be better than the advanced team.
Okay, let's move on to the next one, okay? The next one is the Wolf calendar, inputs equal outputs. Let's have a look at this.
If you're not at 3 million a year yet, 4 hours a day is what it takes in advertising. Keep letting people know that you exist because no one cares and they have forgotten about you already. And it's 4 hours a day of just reminding the world that you exist. And so you can do that via content, you can do it via...
I mean, what a brilliant marker to sort of tell yourself in your brain. If you are not doing 3 million, you should be putting in 4 hours of outreach, 4 hours of actively letting people know that you exist. And this comes down to your calendar structure and what I call the 3 R's: rhythm, routine, and ritual, right? It's about setting up your day so that you are constantly doing the thing that matters the most, right? And a lot of it is going to be letting people know you exist. In the beginning stages, you should be spending 50% on the creative and then just dividing your calendar into two. Half the day goes to just letting people know you exist, and then the other half goes to deliver and everything. And obviously, for some of you, you will have shoots for the full day and you have to go away and stuff. But that's where you have to try and set up someone else that can actually do this for you. And that's what we do in the 500K is we get you to hire a VA that can do this for you, not 4 hours a day, but 8 to 10 hours a day, so that you are just constantly letting the world know that you exist. Very, very, very solid advice here. Very, very solid.
Paid ads, you can do it via outreach, it doesn't matter. But 4 hours, if you do that every day, you will never go hungry. Because it's really hard to do something for 4 hours a day for a year, every single day, and not get pretty good at it. It's tough.
Great advice. And the last couple that I want to talk about is this is a very good thing. And this is about holding and
I like prefacing things with it's really expensive. Literally.
and the next two are very much similar. They're basically about holding your value. And it's this advice is very good advice. And I used to say this to clients, and even just at a networking event, I would just shake their hand and be like, "How you doing?" and talk to them, and then they would say, "How much is a video from you?" I would say it's really expensive. It's super expensive. But let's have a Zoom call and we can talk about it. I would always say that things are really expensive. Let's listen to what he has.
Really, the moment before we say the price. I like doing that because no matter how rich someone is, expensive always means expensive. So it's expensive. And it's like they brace themselves, and then you say it. If they imagine a number higher, then they're like, oh, sigh of relief, yeah, I'm in. If they imagine a number that's high, but we're still higher, they were braced for it. And so then you don't have these big reactions. I like prefacing things with it's really expensive. Literally the moment before we say the price. I like doing that because no matter how rich someone is, expensive always means expensive. So it's expensive. And it's like they brace themselves, and then you say it. If they imagine a number higher, then they're like, oh, sigh of relief, yeah, I'm in. If they imagine a number that's high, but we're still higher, they were braced for it. And so then you don't have these big reactions. I like
Huge advice there, and very good tidbits for you to look at when you're talking to people about your production is just to let people know that you are expensive. Don't ever be afraid to say that you're expensive, because when they actually get your number, they're going to say one or two things. It wasn't that bad, or yeah, it was, but they were ready for it. This is a really good when you're feeling like you're in this commodity trap, and we deal with this a lot in the 500K brand story creator, and I just think the advice here is sound. And this one really does come down to the quality of your work. If your work is really that good, you'll have people coming in and haggling that, and it's like, well, why do you go there? And you'll hear what he's saying here, but this really does work if you're very good at the job. If you are really good at putting stories together, you can use this with full 100% turbocharged confidence. I would definitely put this down in a journal or somewhere, or just remember this when you're talking to clients that ever bring this up, because I know a lot of you that are watching this channel go through this stuff really, and it's hard for you. But listen to what he says.
just crushes. So they're like, well, the other guy down the street is, half the price of what you guys are. And I'm like, totally understand. Why aren't you going over there? And then they'll say, well, I mean, you guys have this thing. And
the fact that he says, why aren't you going down there? What does that do? It demonstrates a completely and utter non-neediness. I'm not even attached to you. Why are you here? What are you talking to? If I can't help you, if it's cheaper down there, and if that's the deciding factor that you're going to make or based on price and price only, then we're not the people for you. Like, what are you doing here? Like, that is something, if you can say that and get to it. Now, a lot of you that are struggling and, haven't got the nervousness of saying this may throw you, or may think, well, fuck, what if they do walk away and go, yeah, all right, well, I'm off. But then they were never really your client anyway, because they would probably be a lot more difficult and hard to work with. But let's continue listening to what he has to say.
You guys have that thing and you guys have this thing. And I'm like, that's why we're more. If you want the 201 version of that is like, if the prices were the same, which one would you do? Ours or theirs? And they're going to.
You don't want to fall into the trapdoor here by talking about cameras. What you want to talk about is the work, the impact. This is the outcome, right? You always want to sell from a place of impact. You don't want to start saying, the reason why ours is so much better is because I've got a red. Like, don't let these things, I've got a very big use by, like, I just don't think that the camera is going to be the best point of sale. Don't make it about that, because camera prices are coming down in price. They're not really going up in price, right? So you don't want to make it about gear or technician reasons why you're better. What you want to make it about is the impact and the outcome of working with you. What is the result you want? That's really where you're going to be able to lean into that.
Be like, well, I would do yours. It's like, right, because ours is better. It's one of my favorite.
It's better. And that's what you have to have, that it's extreme confidence. I hope you enjoyed the video. Alex Hormozi, I'm a big fan of him, and I think a lot of people across the business space are as well. And I just wanted to pull out some of my favorite lessons from him. And I think that there's some things that you can apply to your video business and when you're scaling it up. There's a lot of advice here. And even though it's like he sort of puts it into these like 30-second, 8-minute videos, some of these fundamental lessons, if you can document them and apply them, can add a massive value to your business. If you like this content, please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, drop me a question or a comment. Let me know what your favorite Alex Hormozi video is, and I will see you in the next video.